Don't you feel like we're increasingly becoming a cowardly generation? It's impossible to even just engage in authentic dialogue anymore nowadays. The only safe topics are food and the weather. And all anyone has to say to shut down conversation is, "You're a bigot. Don't judge me, you can't judge me, you have no right to judge me," or "Don't shove your religion or morality down my throat." And we're so afraid of these labels that we're cowed into silence. Sometimes, even if we're not afraid, we're trying to continue the conversation, they just bulldoze us by yelling louder or longer, right? So how do we approach this situation? Well, I think these are the three common approaches I've seen. We give up, we appease, maybe we enable with our compliance or our tolerance of different ideas, even though we know that a lot of the behaviors and the ideas and philosophies are just really harmful and unacceptable. They're not something that we would want around our children. Two, maybe we just isolate ourselves. Like, I can't be with these people. I don't want to know them. We're just gonna stay in different sides of the room, different sides of the country. And then number three, we get angry, right? And we're just like, "Oh, that horrible person," or "those horrible people." And we try to use the same tactics. We out-yell them, we think and say a lot of horrible things to them and use their own tactics against them. And some of us kind of just use all three depending on our moods in the day. Well, dear friends, today I want to remind you that we are called to be salt and light in the world. And in these tough times, right, when there's so much division and such a lack of authentic dialogue and just listening to each other, there are specific things we need to keep in mind. How can we be salt and light in these times? First of all, we are not our ideas and our actions. Our behaviors, our thoughts don't determine our inherent human value. Now, they shape a lot of who we are, and a lot of people think, oh, we're just the sum of our environment and our experiences. And to some extent, it's what shapes us and determines how we continue to act or how we will act and think in the future, but it has nothing to do with our value, okay? It has nothing to do with our inherent human value. We as Christians have to remember, and our every interaction with the world and with ourselves have to be directed by this thought. We have to look at everything with a godly vision, right? We have to remember that human beings were created, were made into the image and likeness of a God that loved them into existence. We know that our inherent human value is not determined by external factors. And it's like that saying, right? Love the sinner, but not the sin. Our value as human being can never be taken away. That's why there are things like human rights and civil rights, or even rights for prisoners, because no matter what someone has done, they're a human person. And you can't treat them like an animal, no matter how you feel about them. So we need to keep that in mind, and again, to see others and ourselves with a godly vision, and approach each person with a reverence, regardless of how much we dislike them or what they have done. And I know it's hard, and sometimes, in some cases, even impossible, but this is how we maintain our respectful attitude, by remembering that people are loved by God, and it doesn't matter what we think or how we see them, it doesn't change how God sees them. So, and if we say that He's our God, we have to try to fall in line with His visions, okay? Second, then, if you can distinguish between a person's inherent value and in treating them and viewing them with respect, then you should definitely judge. Yes, judge. Yes, be intolerant. But you're going to judge and be intolerant of those bad ideas and those bad actions, those things that harm society, that harm people, the ideas and the thoughts that we don't, and the behaviors that we don't want around our children. We have a responsibility, a moral obligation to leave a world that our children can thrive in. And we have every right to shape that world and to fight for that world because we're taking up space. Okay, we take up your space and shape it for your children, shape it for our future generations. We can't be apathetic or try to isolate because it's just going to cause more division. It's very important to judge and be intolerant and call out bad actions, bad thoughts for what they are and show how they are harmful. It's not okay to be silent. It's not okay to be tolerant of bad ideas and bad actions, just like it's not okay to be tolerant of murder or of violence. So we have to be braver in calling those things out. Now, I know that's scary, right? But I think it will be less scary, this is the third part, if we approach these situations and just take a step back to reflect on ourselves and to have humility to admit when we're being hypocrites. I think that's key. And to just be honest where in our lives we're trying to hide things or where there's a lack of integrity and a lack of consistency. And I think once we acknowledge those things, we are going to be able to apologize for them and try to live in line with what we say, right? We need to walk the talk and not just talk the talk. And when we're walking the talk, that's going to empower us to even more to say and judge and be intolerant of the bad things, the bad actions, the bad decisions. So call them out. And we can't be in isolation because it makes us weaker and it will make our children weaker when we live and create little bubbles for ourselves, right? And like whether we like it or not, the world is moving and progressing and we're not called to be outside of it. We're called to be in it. We're called to be salt of the earth, right? And what is the function of salt? Well, it preserves food and it gives it flavor. So as salt of the earth, we need to preserve the earth, like morally preserve it. And we need to give it flavor, right? By challenging it and just being out in the world and being who God made us to be. And we're called to be light, right? To bring people out of the darkness, to again, show the bad things for what they are, the bad ideas and the bad behaviors for what they are. That's what that means to be light in the world. And we have to do that. We can't run away because that's what we're called to do. And if we run away, it's like we gave up the battle for our children. It's leaving too much to chance and not trying. Like we're going to raise weak children who are never challenged, but also maybe like people who don't know how to engage in true dialogue, who get angry or just so uncomfortable whenever there's a challenging thought that's presented to them or they're called something that's not even true, right? We know we're not bigots. We know we're not judges of people, like we're judges of ideas, but we know that's not us, right? I mean, yeah, okay, I'm okay being called a bigot and a judger of bad ideas and bad action, but I know who I am and what I think of people, and even if people choose to label me that way, that doesn't affect my value and how I'm going to behave and think in the future, because they have no control over me, and we should not give them that type of control over us. So yeah, when people call you bigot or judger or whatever, just own it and just say, yeah, I'm a bigot for bad actions, bad ideas. I'm not tolerant of those things because they're bad. They're bad for us, they're bad for society, and it's not something that should be allowed. And there are better options. And maybe that's what it is. Maybe people just don't know that there are better options, and we need to be the ones letting them know there are better options, there are greater options. Sometimes I think people get fixated on this idea that if this, then that, and that's it, right? Like false dichotomy, but they don't see that there's more. There's more. There's always a better option that doesn't require devaluing people or any unnecessary killing. So, or violence or disagreements. So, I hope this has been helpful, and if it has, if you could give this a like if you're still around, and subscribe if you would like to hear more in the future. Have a blessed day.